CAR T, a cancer therapy that takes a patient's stem cells and re-engineers them to recognize and fight cancer, is being called a curative therapy for some blood cancers. So why are too many patients being left behind? Answers just ahead on Open Mics. Good morning. I'm Dr. Sean Coomer, Chief Medical Officer at the University of Kansas Health System, Kansas City Division. Welcome to Open Mics. CAR T-cell therapy is not reaching enough people. Why is that? We think it's because generally not enough patients know it exists or know where to get their care. We're going to start changing that today by helping you better understand the remarkable progress happening with CAR T-cell therapies. In studio with us is Dr. Joseph McGurk, Director of Hematologic Malignancies and Cellular Therapies here at the University of Kansas Cancer Center. Dr. Mark Hoffman is the Director of our Lymphoma Program at the Cancer Center. And Dr. David Akavan is a translational physician scientist at the Cancer Center doing some exciting cancer research. So we also have a GI physician researcher, Dr. Rayed Al-Rajabi, who is working on CAR T solid tumor trials and joins us virtually. CAR T stands for Chimeric Antigen Receptor T-cell therapy. Before we hear from our panel, let's hear from some patients who have received this life-saving cancer treatment.
Keep on going, don't stop. You heard it from me, DJ Hank.
Find a specialist, find support. Make sure you have support, and don't lose hope. Hope is always out there.
He explained to me that they, extracted T cells, re-engineered them, put them back in, and then those T cells would fight my specific cancer. And to be honest, it sounded too good to be true. So day 30, I had 2% blast, and anything under 5% is considered remission.
The procedure itself is pretty uneventful, and it was just a really little bitty bag. It's about a bag this big, and they give it back to you, and then it goes into your system, and it multiplies by the millions to begin fighting your cancer cells.
I don't want anybody to think that it's easy, because it is medical treatment, but compared to the previous treatments, I mean, I was sick, but it was like having the flu.
When I'd heard of people being enrolled in a clinical trial, I always thought, wow, this isn't good. And I always just had a horrible feeling about that and never wanted to be in that position myself. However, when I was faced with the need for a clinical trial, it was nothing like I expected. I felt complete hope.
After my second round of chemo, my doctor who was treating me just basically told us that there was nothing more they could do for me. I was immediately transferred over to KU, and the rest is history.
This is not a hopeless condition anymore. The science of how they're doing it and the advances that medical people, it tells you why this community works so hard to get NCI designated cancer center. The value of that to having this kind of on-the-ground therapies, it just can't be overstated.
We went full speed ahead with CAR T, and thank goodness.
White cell, are those back? Oh, right. Oh, wow.
Sooner or later, you're gonna have to go to KU so they're a little bit better and more specialized in taking care of this and giving me a better treatment.
Doctors, you probably recognize many of these patients' voices. They were all diagnosed with some type of blood cancer. They received their CAR T-cell therapy as part of the clinical trial in recent years. Dr. McGurk, are they the living proof of why we call CAR T a curative cancer therapy for blood cancer?
Most certainly, Dr. Coomer. We have seen patients who had absolutely no chance of being cured historically, now living years in continued complete remission for a number of blood cancers, a broad array of non-Hodgkin's lymphomas, a disease multiple myeloma, and acute leukemias. And the horizons continue to expand into solid tumors, which you'll hear about in just a little bit. So it's been a real paradigm shift in a number of blood cancers that we care for.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just fantastic. It's incredible. It's
It is incredible.
Like the stuff dreams are made of.
It's gee whiz science.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
Yeah. Dr. Hoffman, what excites you most about CAR T-cell therapy?
Well, I think if we're going to use an automobile analogy, it is called a car. Our current CAR T-cell constructs are sort of like a 90s Toyota pickup, right? You still see them on the road. They're definitely going to get you there, but there's probably nicer ways to travel. And so we're in the process, and this is happening, some of this science is happening internally here at KU, of developing better cars, right? So nicer ways to travel, but also sort of giving them post-market, aftermarket modifications, adding in a turbocharger, giving them something that's a little bit nicer, a better spoiler. So there's a lot of adjunctive therapies, whether that includes some cytokine type stimulation to try and keep the construct active. But there's a lot of things that we can do better than our current constructs. They work fine, but there's so much potential to have them work better, and we're just starting to understand how to make that happen.
I saw what you did there with the car and the automobile thing. That's pretty,
yeah,
pretty
you got to rock the analogies when they show up, right? It's
Absolutely. I don't know if Toyota's going to be upset. They might be upset about that. Who knows? Dr. Akavan and Dr. Al-Rajabi, it feels like we've cracked the code on fighting blood cancers. Where are we with using CAR T on solid tumors? What is different when working to fight a solid tumor over a blood cancer?
So it is a complex problem. With CAR T-cell therapy targeting solid tumors, the CAR T has to infiltrate the tumor. Often it's in a metabolic competition, the nutrients that the T-cell needs and the tumor cell also needs, so the T-cell is often at a loss with that regard. There's also immune suppressive cells in there that are actively suppressing the CAR T-cell. So right now in solid tumors, it's a very exciting time. It's mostly in clinical trials, and we're seeing rare responders, whether it's a pediatric patient with a brain tumor or if it's a metastatic disease like prostate cancer. You're reading the literature, there's one patient out of like 15 or so that had amazing response. Sometimes it's associated with toxicity. So we're trying to use these clinical trials and design new strategies to target the immune suppressive tumor microenvironment, recruit the host immune system for a durable cure for all patients, not just the rare patient.
So it's a penetrance problem, but actually getting to that solid tumor, but also that solid tumor is fighting back.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Al-Rajabi, do you have similar hurdles in your research with CAR T, and what makes you hopeful?
Absolutely. I think Dr. Akavan definitely showed us some of the hurdles. Solid tumors are a little bit more complicated than liquid tumors or blood cancers because they have multiple targets and can shift gears to help them survive in the microenvironment. And the solid tumors require a much longer process to address killing the cancer, unlike a few of the hematological tumors that can respond really rapidly. So it's very hard to keep these cells alive and replicate in the host in the setting of solid tumors. So there's a few hurdles, but it's a very exciting time. We're seeing some really great responses with cancers like hepatocellular carcinoma, which we were fortunate to have some options for here at KU.
All right. So we know that CAR T has profoundly changed the treatment landscape of lymphoma, leukemia, multiple myeloma. There are currently 7 FDA-approved CAR T-cell therapy, and here's the list coming up. This is pretty exciting. And so, Dr. McGurk, our cancer center offers all 7, which is pretty darn exciting. So how rare is it for a cancer center like ours to be able to offer all 7? How do we do this?
It's very unusual. So we were one of the first 14 centers, first 10 centers, and first, if I remember correctly, 12 centers in opening, in applying the newly approved by Food and Drug Administration CAR T-cell constructs. And the reason that we were chosen as one of just a handful of centers nationally in those different cancer types is because we were on the cutting edge of the clinical trials that led to the Food and Drug Administration approval. So we went out, sought industry partners, told them that KU was the place to do their clinical trials out here in the middle of the country. Didn't have to be a coastal program, that we had the firepower here to do it. And then we did it, and we did it par excellence, and we're a lead enrolling site on a number of these trials, co-authored 4 manuscripts in the New England Journal of Medicine that led to CAR T approvals for patients. So the industry folks who make these CAR T cells and got the FDA approval, they already had a significant experience with University of Kansas health system. So we were on the front end of the ability to apply these in the commercial setting.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, already a big center even before CAR T, right?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
I mean, one
correct.
of the biggest in the country.
That's right.
So, off the earned, which is fantastic and incredible here in the Midwest. So, Dr. Hoffman, there are 3 CAR T-cell cellular therapies that target different types of lymphoma. Are they the patient's first line of defense, or do patients need to still do chemo, radiation, and/or surgery before being eligible for CAR T?
So generally not, at least as of right now. So if you look at probably the easiest disease to think about, which is diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, we cure about 60% of those patients with frontline chemoimmunotherapy combinations, without radiation, taken all stage. Well, that still leaves 40% of people that have bad outcomes. And it's really that group of people whose therapy has been transformed by CAR T-cells, at least as of right now. The current body of clinical trials is looking at a couple of different things. The first one is separating out the highest risk patients and offering them potentially CAR T-cell therapy in the frontline setting. So we're participating in that large randomized phase 3 study here at KU. Other strategies include checking for whether a patient is in a deep molecular remission at completion of therapy and offering early consolidation with CAR T-cell therapy. So again, we're learning how we may be able to incorporate it to start to shave off some of that 40% and hopefully move the bar on those patients.
So lymphoma patients were the focus of a recent data analysis study that showed only a few CAR T eligible cancer patients actually received CAR T. What are the top barriers to getting CAR T? Dr. McGurk, do you think this is only true for lymphoma patients, or researchers suspect the problem is systemic?
No, it's a systemic problem. It has been for many, many years. Many patients don't access even what is the standard of care, no less clinical trial participation in the United States. It's really very unfortunate. And so this certainly has been the case for CAR T-cell therapy. Here we have now a standard of care for patients with relapsed or lymphoma, diffuse large B-cell lymphoma not responding to chemotherapy, called refractory. The standard of care would be CAR T-cell in that patient population. And so we looked at 10,000 patients across the country and presented those data at a couple of recent national and international meetings. And we showed that where CAR T-cell should have been used, it was only used 25% of the time in patients across the nation. And that's absolutely abysmal. It's totally unacceptable. This is a potentially curative therapy. And for those patients who are eligible, likely the only potential curative therapy. So we have a lot of work to do to improve these problems in access, education of referring providers and their teams, education of the public, of patients, contending with socioeconomic challenges for that patient population, demographics. We have a rural population that we serve in the middle of the country. So we're intent and working hard to knock those barriers down so patients can get these therapies.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when I see those sort of scatter plots and showing how many different cancers can potentially be treated by CAR T down the road is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely, it's incredible.
It's just the beginning of the ride.
That's right.
Yeah. So CAR T is used to fight multiple myeloma. Dr. Ola Abdallah, our chief of myeloma and plasma cell disorders, is at a conference, couldn't be with us today, but here's what he had to say about how CAR T is making a difference for his patients.
This type of technique treatment is really advanced to the point that it can kill a lot of myeloma cells, and the response rate is over 90–95%, and the depth of the response is really amazing. Like these patients, most of the time they're in complete remission. All the studies has shown not only these response rate was visible, but there was a survival benefit. So this has improved the survival for these patients. We went from telling patients that we have less options of therapy. Now we have a very important tool and a very good treatment that can improve the survival for the patients of myeloma. Prior to the CAR T-cell advancement and approval, we didn't have a lot of options of therapy. All our options were old-fashioned chemotherapy that patients will have more side effects and unfortunately less efficacy. So the quality of life has actually usually declined by that time. When we started seeing CAR T-cell, not only it provided an efficacy treatment and a treatment that patients can tolerate, but also it actually provided a quality of life that patients actually enjoy it, and they had a better options of actually spending more time with their families and relatives and friends. like any other treatment. We have to understand that CAR T-cell, as much as have efficacy, it has some risk. The way that the CAR T-cells attack the myeloma cells, it produces cytokines, and these cytokines kill the myeloma cells. But sometimes it get overreacted and start producing more of that. We call it cytokine release syndrome, and it's like a storm, and it causes some symptoms, fever, chills, and it could go up to shortness of breath. But the good news is that we have really great treatments. There is really good supportive studies that show that the 5-year patients being off treatment after the CAR T cells, 30% of these patients stay in remission, which is a good sign of that we're heading to the right direction of curing myeloma.
While there are 7 CAR T-cell therapies to fight blood cancers, not all programs or clinical trials are equal. The national average to collect a patient's cells and send to be re-engineered is 38 days. Our average here at the University of Kansas Cancer Center is 23 days. We are saving 15 days compared to the national average and delivering therapy faster compared to other centers. Dr. McGurk, first of all, how are we doing that, and what difference does time make for these patients? 2 full weeks. 2 weeks. It's unbelievable.
I have a model in our team, and that is every hour, every day makes a difference in the lives of these patients. And so we've had a can-do attitude from the very beginning. When we opened these clinical trials, we had patients coming to us from around the nation and from other nations as well for enrollment in these clinical trials. We could get a patient, and did, from Arizona or California or Newfoundland in 24 to 48 hours, collect their cells, and have the show on the road. Some patients with these diseases, all of those that are described, acute leukemias, lymphomas, and myeloma, have very aggressive, rapidly growing disease, and they're already somewhat infirm from their disease progression, and some will die before CAR T can get back to them. We had manufacturing delays, and it takes weeks to generate these CAR T-cell therapies. Breakthroughs in our translational science has allowed manufacturers to bring that number down, and it's just an incredible team that we have here at University of Kansas Cancer Center, where it's a yes sir, yes ma'am, right away, we'll get it done, and we get people out here quickly. And you do things in parallel, not in sequence. So you activate the team, and 7 different things are being done to prepare that patient for CAR T-cell therapy. And so we are, in one of the most commonly used CAR T-cell therapies, we lead the entire nation in terms of how quickly we can access these therapies for our patients. Critically important to outcomes.
Yeah. As Dr. McGurk said, it takes a team of people who are highly trained to care for patients receiving CAR T-cell cellular therapy. Our pharmacists and tech play a critical role, as Dr. Zahra Mahmoud Jafari tells us. Dr. Mahmoud Jafari couldn't be here today, but wanted to share some information with you. She's our clinical pharmacy manager in the Division of Hematologic Malignancies and Cellular Therapies.
In oncology and in cancer care, we are fortunate enough to have a lot of drug approvals every single year. That is something we're very, very used to. What makes these therapies unique is that it's not just an approval for one medication, and once it's approved, it can be used. It takes quite a bit of an effort from various different departments within the hospital to be prepared and able to administer these therapies. They are somewhat more complex. They take a significant amount of time to coordinate all of the logistics because they are essentially arising from a patient's own cells. And so when you think about the way CAR T-cell therapy currently works is you're collecting a patient's cells, you're shipping it to the manufacturer who then takes and re-engineers the patient's own cells and then ships it back to us to reinfuse into the patient. There is a significant amount of coordinated logistics in order to make sure that every step of that process is safe, has the quality checks that you need in order to say this is safe to proceed, etc. And so for a center to really be able to administer any one of these therapies, it often takes close to 6 to 9 months of coordinated effort amongst many different departments in order to make sure that everyone is feeling prepared, everyone is trained, everyone is educated, and then we can actually treat a patient. So when we say that we are able to administer these 7 CAR T-cell therapies, that essentially highlights the great multidisciplinary work that many different departments within this organization have to be working together in tandem in order to be able to administer these therapies. We were part of the original clinical trials, so they've been a part of my daily work for the better part of a decade. And one thing I've learned is you write it all in pencil, and you're willing to go back to the drawing board, and you learn from every single patient, and you learn from every single teammate that you have on how to continue to improve it. It's super humbling to be a part of probably the most exciting time in cancer medicine.
So although these things are happening already at faster than national averages, one exciting note is that our new cancer building, which is under construction, will allow us to expedite the re-engineering process more as it will take place here on campus. And this has been made possible through generous donations. And this lab will be called the Good Manufacturing Practice, or GMP lab. CAR T-cell therapy represents 30+ years of research, but the last decade has seen the most advances, which are paving the way for more research into solid tumors. Dr. Akhavan, we established that you and Dr. Al-Rajabi are actively researching CAR T to treat solid tumors. Tell us a little bit more detail of where you are with this research. What's your current focus, Dr. Akhavan?
So I really take my research focus informed by what's happening in the clinical trials. And the most recent clinical trials, as we alluded to, genetically modify the T-cell to express the CAR, but also additionally modify the T-cell to express a cytokine. And this genetic modification of the cytokine allows CAR T-cells to expand within the body and more effectively kill the tumor cell. But we're seeing these rare patients who have great response with this cytokine armored CAR T-cell are also having unacceptable side effects. So the question is, how can we modify CAR T-cells such that they can secrete cytokines and really have an anti-tumor effect without the long-term toxicity seen by permanent genetic modification with a cytokine armoring? So with collaborators at the KU Cancer Center, Dr. Bosman and the Cancer Biology Department, we've invented a technology where we actually load the CAR T-cell with a drug-eluting polymer. The specific drug that we selected enhances the cytokine potential of CAR T-cells, but because it's a drug-eluting polymer, it's limited in the duration. It's not a permanent modification. It may last anywhere from 2 weeks around there. So we think this transient secretion of cytokines may give us a therapeutic window to effectively overcome the issues with the solid tumor without the permanent long-term toxicities.
You're trying to trick the body. You're trying to trick the tumor, right, to get it in there so it lowers the defense somehow, right?
Yes, yeah.
Dr. Al-Rajabi, same question for you. What is your current focus of your research involving CAR T-cell therapy?
So our GI group, fortunately, has been very, very active in this space. I know that we're in the beginning of the journey. We're really focused on figuring out the targets that are the most effective in getting these cells to recognize the cancer. Whether it's basically armored CAR T cells, just like Dr. Akhavan mentioned, with multiple signals that trigger a response, or even TCR technology, which can detect minute mutations inside the cancer, like the KRAS gene that's very commonly seen in pancreatic cancer and colon cancer. We also have other cellular therapeutics and adjunct therapies that we're investigating. And I think we're still in our infancy, but we've definitely seen some promising signals in some of our studies. But that's kind of our main focus at this point. Our whole group is really committed to finding a better immune therapy for our patients that have run out of options.
Dr. Al-Rajabi, some more questions for you. What is the most encouraging news in fighting solid tumors? Will we see this work evolve like CAR T has for blood cancers anytime soon?
I think we're still in the beginning of our journey, but hope and science are getting closer together, and it's a very exciting time. The immune system is the most elegant, most efficient way to combat cancer. We know that from our colleagues in liquid tumors, and we're hoping that we could translate that success in solid tumors going forward. And I think it's going to take some time, but we'll hopefully get there.
Well, Dr. Al-Rajabi, I'm going to hold you to that because I collaborate with Dr. Al-Rajabi, and he says just go in there and take it out, just simply. So I'm going to say that to you. Just go in there and take care of it, okay, Dr. Al-Rajabi?
We will.
We're here to answer your questions. Please send them in using the links on your screen, YouTube, Facebook, or email the Medical News Network. Let's check in with Doc Hawk. Last time we talked, flu was trending down after shooting up in the weeks prior. Let's talk about the nation first, and what are the numbers here locally and the nation?
Yeah, certainly we know that there was a huge increase, a few weeks ago. This is increase in people who are seeking care for influenza-like illness, or ILI, which is typical symptoms of cough or cold or influenza. We knew there was an increase. However, the last few weeks we have seen a decrease. And then the last couple weeks there was a slight increase again. But overall, we know that nationally activity still remains high, although not as high as a few weeks ago. But we know in our community as well, there continues to be somewhat high activity of influenza, circulating around. I'm sure we all know either friends or family who have had it as well.
So are we seeing the same downward slope here as well as the nation, or where are we?
Yeah, exactly. We are seeing that as well. We do know that we have recently at our health system, the numbers of admissions have gone down considerably from a few weeks ago, where we had over 50 influenza admissions. Most recently, over the past week, we have seen quite a bit of decrease. So only 20 adult admissions for influenza and 1 pediatric. For RSV, we've also seen 12 adult admissions and 2 pediatric, and then for COVID, that activity is still remaining low. So we only have 11 COVID patients in the hospital at this point.
So even with the numbers going down, we saw 8 pediatric deaths this past week for a total of 60 in the country. 90% of those deaths were from children who were not fully vaccinated. We ask every week, is there still time for a flu shot? I mean, we've seen. Well, we'll get to the next thing about measles next, but is there time for a flu shot?
Oh, absolutely. We still typically consider respiratory viral season from that October time period, late October time period, through April 1. So there is still time to get it. It does take about, 10 days, 7-10 days to start to mount a response to the vaccine to boost that immune system. And even though we know that the influenza vaccine this year is not a great match to the current most predominant influenza strain that is circulating, that's the influenza A H3N2 subclade K, we know it's not a good match, but interim analysis do show that getting the vaccine does boost or prime your immune system. And with that, you do have a reduction in overall severity and chance of going to seek medical attention, and especially going to the ICU. So there is still time to get it, even though the vaccine isn't necessarily a good match right now. You can still boost your immune system. And also what we see is later in the season, we will typically see a second wave of influenza come through the community. Most of the time, that's going to be an influenza B, and we are actually seeing that with our public health laboratories and their reporting. They are seeing a slight increase in influenza B circulation around the nation as well.
So we saw this week CMS as well as HHS came out and recommended measles vaccination, or put it out there again, but we've had a resurgence over the winter with an outbreak in January at Clemson. Is measles now considered endemic after being officially declared eliminated back in 2000?
Yeah, I mean, essentially we are getting to that point where U.S. will lose its measles elimination status. We know that Canada last year had already lost it, and basically what that takes is continued endemic spread in communities within our nation, and we are currently seeing that. So just as you mentioned those outbreaks, now we've also heard there was a Texas detention center that there were some cases. We know that in South Carolina there have been increased cases. Most recently, a university in southern Florida has shown an outbreak as well. And unfortunately, in South Carolina, they did mention very briefly about patients who had to be admitted to the hospital with actual signs of measles encephalitis. So this is not a benign disease. This is not something that you want, nor do you want your loved ones, especially your children, to get. There are risks of complications with those. So if you haven't been vaccinated, please go get vaccinated for that. And again, just as you said, there is still time to get influenza vaccine and as well as updated COVID vaccine for this season if you haven't as well.
Yeah, measles, it started just a simple little disease, but it is deadly.
It is deadly. Yeah, you can have acute effects, but you can also have those long-term effects, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, where the virus can have a resurgence and inflammatory process in your brain, and that is typically always fatal. But you know what? These safe, researched and used for decades vaccines do provide protection against that.
Thanks, Dr. Hawkinson. Appreciate it. We know many of you have questions, so let's head to Studio B with Alexis.
Good morning. We have some great questions coming in. Jean wants to know, does insurance cover CAR T?
All right, you want to take that one, Dr. Wicker?
It certainly does. CAR T, for many of the indications we've been talking about, represents the standard of care in the United States. And although we had some rocky days when we first got FDA approvals, we really don't see that anymore. The insurance companies are very supportive of CAR T for the most part.
Jeremy Yenser has a question. He wants to know, is it possible or going to be possible going forward to generate those new CAR T-cells within the patient's own body?
That's a great question. I'll tackle that. We have a couple of studies that we're opening up where we're injecting the genetic material directly into the blood for the patients to transform their T-cells inside of their body without receiving chemotherapy that is necessary for CAR T currently to clear out the T-cells that would otherwise compete with them in the body. And these are called in vivo CAR T-cell therapies. We have a trial in multiple myeloma and are considering a trial in lymphoma currently, and looking at some other indications as well. It's a very exciting time, but it's very early. It's highly research oriented currently. And then finally, making our own CAR T to overcome some of the barriers to being able to cure patients. We heard from Dr. Abdullah that only 30% of patients are being cured with in multiple myeloma. Well, 70% aren't. So we have our work cut out for us, and we're doing such research in our own center.
So one other strategy, which I think is worthwhile to bring up, especially because you brought up some of the toxicities and wanting to limit permanent exposure. There are antibodies, so not to get too deeply into the science, but the CAR T basically has a recognition domain where it recognizes the cancer, and then something called a co-stimulatory domain, which activates those T cells. We now actually have antibody therapy that can do both of those things. And so there are studies that are looking at giving antibody therapy, which is transient. It lasts about 3 months in general, or the half-life of most of these. But you might be able to get a similar effect and sort of create a CAR T-cell from the patient's own CAR without using a viral vector. So we don't know if that's going to pan out, but there's certainly early studies that suggest that it may be workable.
We have a comment from Greg Vaughn. This is for Dr. Al-Rajabi. Greg Vaughn shared, I'm a 7-year cancer-free survivor of stage 4 colon cancer, thanks to the incredible knowledge and care from Dr. Al-Rajabi. It's a pretty nice comment.
Hey, Greg.
It's one of many comments he receives.
And then we have a question from Jeremy Yenser. Jeremy wants to know, why are so many of the eligible patients who should be getting CAR T therapy not getting it? Do they not know to ask about it? Or is it that their current doctors aren't referring them as quickly or as often as they should?
It's both of those issues, patient and public education about CAR T-cell therapy and its potential. It's physician education, and as an academic center and a comprehensive cancer center, we have an obligation to get out and educate our physician teams throughout the community, throughout our state and region in the central part of the United States. So we have work to be done there. We need to knock down barriers such as the cost of traveling to a center, which can be a challenge for patients who live remotely in rural areas in the central part of the nation. And we need to figure out how to improve or help them with their expenses when they are in the treatment center, and there are programs that allow for that. But I think knowledge and information is the most critical part of this entire journey. There are competing treatment strategies out there. However, in the patients that are being treated with CAR T-cell therapy, there are few, if any, that have demonstrated long-term follow-up and a curative nature, and that's where our focus is.
Well, thanks, Alexis. Appreciate it. This has been a great discussion. I'm grateful to our guests for being here. I also want to get some final thoughts before we go. We asked Dr. Abdallah and Dr. Mahmoud Jafari their takeaways for you today when it comes to CAR T-cell therapy.
I would say that after 10 years and seeing the kind of more prolonged studies on these therapies in these disease states, we can confidently say that they do in fact work and do have a place in therapy, and they're really exciting.
CAR T-cell, and while myeloma in general is a journey that patients receive multiple lines of therapies, the whole purpose of us is not only patients live longer, but also live better, the quality of life. And we want to share that with these patients, and we are part of this journey as well. We always advocate for our patients to receive the best care of treatment, and we always recommend that our patients come to comprehensive cancer centers kind of to receive the best options of therapies that we want to provide them.
Dr. Al-Rajabi, how about final thoughts from you?
Just wanted to say our team here is committed to replicate the success that the hematology and BMT team have achieved, and we're very excited with all the studies that we have. And I would advise every patient to advocate for themselves, to seek a clinical trial, whether it's CAR T or anything else, and we're here to help any way we can.
Dr. Hoffman?
So I think you could talk a lot about the science, which is exciting. We've talked about that and around it all day, but I think that my final thought here is that the biggest single way to improve our cures for relapsed and refractory lymphoma patients is to get the 75% of patients who aren't even offered CAR T-cells in our door.
Dr. McGurk?
I absolutely concur with that. And I'll just say on a very positive note, because it's what I believe firmly, we are in a revolution in cancer therapeutics right now, and a lot of that is based on our better understanding of the immune system and leveraging that knowledge to develop novel therapies like CAR T-cell therapy. It's an extraordinarily promising time. It's really cool, I call gee whiz in a corny way, science that's advancing, and it's the most hopeful time in the history of cancer therapeutics. We still have a lot of work to do.
Dr. Akhavan?
As a physician scientist, I'm very supportive of clinical trials where we can take the cutting edge technology from the laboratory and bring it to patients in a clinical trial setting where they may be compared to a standard of care versus more advanced technology. And only then can we really advance technology and bring this to a lot more people.
Great, thank you. Let's get back to Alexis to hear what she's working on for tomorrow's show.
We have a great episode of All Things Heart coming up tomorrow, Dr. Coomer. Coming up, you'll meet an adventurer, a husband, a father, a cancer survivor who is now a heart attack survivor. And we're going to show you why this patient chose to fly across the country to have his life-saving surgery here at the University of Kansas Health System. That's tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. on All Things Heart.
All right, thanks, Alexis. Well, thanks again to all our guests. What you heard today was cutting-edge science, cutting-edge research available here at the University of Kansas. And to our audience, remember, faith, hope, and science.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.